Oh, yeah, absolutely. So that's when you found the horse, right?
Oh, yeah, it was plain as day. But it's just like sometimes I'm drifting through life like a sailboat.
What? Dude, we were just like having a conversation, then you just go off on some really weird random tangent.
I'm playing up the unrealistic sexual personality for our otaku based viewing audience.
But our audience isn't really the otaku culture. It's more of like the literature culture.
Ah, yes, I'm going to appeal to our literary friends. I look ridiculous.
That's what makes it more entertaining to me.
Props are going away.
Welcome to the CodeX Cantina. I am Una.
And I'm going to be your literary guide, Crypto.
Oh boy. So this is a tough one for us to talk about. I'm going to give you my reaction right now, and then I'm going to explain why. I'm going to go through all of our steps. I'm going to break it down. I'm going to show what it means. I just don't like it, and I don't know if I can continue with the series.
And I think that one of the reasons I have difficulty wanting to continue with this series is I don't think this is something that is meant for us, and that's okay. 50 Shades of Grey. I don't think I would enjoy reading that. That's not written for me. I think this is something where we tried branching out.
The first story was really good, right?
No, I enjoyed it. There was still some uncomfortableness, though, and there's definitely a cultural gap, but...
Yeah.
And I love the religious aspect of it, because I love studying religion, and I like how that's finally woven.
Yeah.
I think that they do a really good job of that. This one, I don't know what the author was going for.
Okay. Well, I think I can explain that. And I think I can explain that for people that aren't super into this, too. I think this might help. But I might not be your guide for any more of these after this, because...
I may be jumping ship with you.
Real quick plot synopsis, because I'm going to get into the talking points here. Araragi bums around a playground on Mother's Day avoiding his home. Senjogahara stumbles upon him and mentions how she wants to repay him for helping her earlier. Araragi is distracted by an elementary grade girl, Mayoi Hachikuji, who appears to be lost. He approaches her to help her and even loses his temper and indulges in a comedic fight with her. They soon begin searching for the girl's home. Senjogahara acts weird by not responding to the girl directly. She agrees to help Araragi and goes to get advice from Oshino. Meanwhile, Araragi and the girl struggle to find her home. When Senjogahara and Oshino speak with him, they reveal that he's with an aberration, a ghost that continually is lost and can't return home. Senjogahara returns and helps Mayoi return to her home where she's been dead 10 years, making her the elder of the two. They discuss the need to distance Araragi from the ghost. Senjogahara continues to tell Araragi she appreciates what he did to help her, even though he'd do it for anyone. Later, Hachikuji approaches Araragi at school, and the two keep a respectable distance, though she says she'll be seeing him again. And that's the plot. So I felt like there was a lot of interesting things, and this could have been going a way that I think would have appealed to a broader audience with kind of like the sexuality of things. So when Senjogahara is trying to open up to him, right? She's continuing that relationship that they started in the first story. And you had this girl across the way that he kind of approaches after he kind of doesn't respond to Senjogahara directly. At first, this isn't where the author goes, but at first I was like, oh, this is going to be a really cool symbol where a young girl represents kind of like that virginity or that fear to open up to the opposite sex. Like, okay, we're going to talk about sexuality to probably teenagers, which is okay to have talks with teenagers about that subject. That's not where the author went, though.
No.
Okay, so first of all, like you said, this isn't written for us, okay? This is written for what's called Otaku Culture, where I kind of wrote that skit, and I'm sure you didn't quite get the joke when I had you do it there, but there are studies and there are talks and research that the more unrealistic the anime, the light novel character is, the heightened sexual attraction some people can have towards them. The more the flip of that, the more realistic they become, that could lessen that attraction. Because in otaku culture, this is truly a fantasy. That's kind of what this research implies. And first, you have to ask yourself, how do you feel when presented with this subject? In Chapter 2, I didn't see this coming, even though they said this here in Chapter 2. Then again, most phenomena in the world we classify as problems are like that. The nature of most problems is that they're closed and finished matters from the beginning. What's more important is the kind of interpretation you stick onto them. So here he was saying, I'm going to bring up a tough subject. I didn't hear him say this at first. And I think it's okay to bring up a subject. But what he's coming up with, well, before we get there, first of all, you also have to realize that Araragi, it comes out, I feel like here, maybe it came out earlier in the first part and I missed it, he's an unreliable narrator, right?
Yeah, he tells the story wrong all the time.
We need to talk now about what he was going for. And do you know what lolicon is, Crypto?
Nope.
So lolicon is short for Lolita Complex. Does that make it more obvious for you now?
Yeah, okay, so this is where you're trying to sympathize and trying to see it from their point of view, that it's okay to have these impure thoughts or urges, right?
Yeah, I mean, kind of. Nabokov in that book, like you said, he does try to manipulate the reader. He uses beautiful language to describe a horrendous subject. So if we look at it from the otaku culture perspective, though, it's not a real person. So it's not really the Lolita novel by any means.
No.
But it's the subject of where I have this fantasy girl, and the more unrealistic she is, the more that you can kind of be attracted to her. But that doesn't mean that you're attracted to those real girls in real life. So you'll notice what he does to kind of highlight this is, I'm guessing if I hadn't described this to you, you would have described the dialogue as horrendous between him and her.
The whole time I'm reading and thinking, what is going on? What is the purpose of this?
So one is what that awkward dialogue is, and her not behaving and responding in the way that you would expect is her playing up the hyper fantasy of it. Like you said, it's not for us.
But so who is the otaku culture then that this is being written for?
That's typically kind of described as those that are really into a particular subject. Most commonly it's anime or Japanese light novels and stuff like that. There is a very specific, there are genres of like what's called, do you know what a harem is?
Yes.
So there are like whole shows based on harems and women acting subservient to males, and some of that can be wish fulfillment. Some of it can be, I would describe the way that Nishiyoshin does this as intelligent. He does have a point, but I don't know if it was executed. I mean, this is not Lolita. This is not done super well, but this is also done for a hyper specific subculture within Japan,
where obviously it's going to be more accepted and obviously very successful and has an anime based on it. It's hard to digest.
Yeah, so in terms of how he kind of handles it, the question is, let's say you wanted to talk about this subject, whether it be from the lolicon perspective or even just talking about a guy that may have a problem with younger women, for example. From a writer's perspective, how do you pull that out besides just doing it, right? Like how do you really play up the symbology and make a meaningful impact? And what we did with this story is that's the problem, right? Like he just put it out here of just like, yeah, this is a lolicon and he feels attracted to it, and here's some people policing it. Like, I feel like there's the 101, which is like the idea. There's the 201, which is like the literary aspect of things. And there's the 301, 401, which is how have you influenced or made a stance or talked about it. And he didn't take a stance or really talk about it. All he did was put an existing issue or talking point out there. And I feel like he had a very ambitious project. I think this is a good example. Stephen King, got to bring it up every video, right?
We've been called out for that, so we have to now.
He had the idea for Under the Dome when he first started his career, but he said, that's too ambitious of a project. So to take not even like your first book, like a novella, like the second part of your first book. Well, I don't know if this is his first book, but the first book in the series, I should say. To take with one of your first books in a series and to try to capture sexuality between, Araragi and Senjogahara and their inability to communicate, to introduce this aberration about being unable to come back home. And I think there's some symbology there with the Lidokan aspect. There's the Lalakan aspect of things. To try to do all of that in 130 pages with no introspection too, like this is almost pure dialogue, and to deliver it in exactly the manner that this concept is typically delivered, the otaku culture, with the hyper played up, unreality of it. I don't know if I give him credit for that. So I get what he was going for. I don't give him credit for this being well done.
Now, I agree 100% with that. The only thing that I would argue a little bit is parts of it are well done. There are a few good quotes, as we've talked about. And I do like how Senogohari, am I saying that right?
Not even close. Senjogahara.
Sarah, because I'm a terrible person. I'm sorry, Japan, and all of our Japanese viewers, but I'm going to call her Sarah since I am...
It's hard to pronounce if you're not familiar with the language.
It's difficult to pronounce for me. Yes, I am not familiar with the language. I think she's a great character. I mean, she doesn't have those flaws that... what's the other guy's name?
Araragi?
Harry. That he has. I like, she's sassy, she's witty, she has all those, she just, I mean, she is always dumping on him, she's like, it's like she'd burn, like burn after burn after burn, like get this guy some aloe vera because she is, she is all over him. And I really like her character, and she seems to be well written. And she's the focus of the anime, right? Like,
I don't know. I don't watch the anime. But to your point, I felt the same way. Where the narrative, what happened in the story was the narrative was like we learned that they still can't communicate, and that I feel like could have been explored, but like it was all just dumped for this really convoluted and difficult, weighty subject that was tried to be tackled with, that was attempted to be tackled with just dialogue, and so we just lost all this potential. I feel like because he's a competent writer. Like this is a worthy subject. This subject, it was just put out there like haphazardly, and there really wasn't any creativity behind it, in my perspective.
So I ask, do we know about him as a writer? That what is the purpose of the second part of the story or the whole series? Because obviously the relationship between Harry and Sarah is the focal point to it, right? So.
Well, it should be, but we got lost down this Lolita. Like he wanted to talk about Lolita complex.
That's odd.
I think it's a really awkward subject and way to take it, but I don't think if you read this book and you read the dysfunctional aspect of it, I think even at an adolescent level, adolescents, they're matured, they're developed, they can judge, they can react to it.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you.
I wouldn't want my kid reading it.
Yeah.
We promised that we were going to kind of review, finish off the Bakemonogatari.
Yeah.
What we didn't know was the subject matter about kind of approaching Lolita complex, lolicon in Japanese culture. I get that this is talking about the fantasies and how fantasies are different from reality. I know that was his point, and I understand it. It's not something that I think we want to cover on this channel.
So this may be a super short video, so enjoy the little funny skit, guys. And if you want to read it, by all means, go ahead and read it, and maybe let us know what you think in the comments below. Are we being too hypercritical of it? Are we, just crotchety old men that can't deal with the new age stuff of the cool kids because we're not lit?
All right, guys. Thank you for checking out our video. Please consider subscribing down below for more videos. Una out.
Peace.